The morning light of luminos cast rainbow patterns through the crystal walls of the healing chamber as Celeste carefully arranged her medical supplies. Her hands moved with practiced precision, organizing the alien herbs and human medicines that had become her specialty over the past 2 years. The palace of Lord Vorthen was a marvel of living crystal that grew from the planet's core, its walls pulsing with a gentle blue light that responded to the emotions of those within. Celeste winced as she reached for a high shelf, the movement pulling at the tender bruises hidden beneath her flowing healer's robes. She had become expert at concealing the marks that appeared with increasing frequency, choosing garments that covered her arms and using the luminescent face paint traditional 2 luminos to hide the fingerprint. Bruises on her throat, the sound of approaching footsteps made her heart race, but she recognized the gentle rhythm immediately. Lord Vorthen entered the chamber, his tall frame moving with the fluid grace of his people. His skin held the translucent quality of living crystal, shifting between pale blue and silver as his emotions flickered beneath the surface. His eyes, like twin stars, held an ancient wisdom that seemed to see through all pretense. "Good morning, Celeste," he said, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones that made the crystal walls sing softly in response. "I trust you slept well," she kept. Her face turned away as she replied, "Yes, my lord. Thank you for asking." But her voice carried a tremor that his sensitive hearing caught immediately. Lord Vorthen had ruled the crystal spires for 3 centuries, and his telepathic abilities allowed him to sense the emotional currents of those around him. Lately, whenever Celeste was near, he felt waves of fear and pain that seemed to emanate from her very soul. Today, those feelings were stronger than ever. "I've been experiencing some discomfort in my shoulder," he said, settling onto the crystalline examination table that formed itself from the floor at his command. "Perhaps you could examine it?" Celeste nodded, grateful for the routine nature of the request. She had been treating Lord Vorthen's old battle wounds for months now, injuries sustained during the Great War that had nearly destroyed both their species. Her unique understanding of both human and alien anatomy made her invaluable in the palace.
Ow.
One of the few humans trusted with caring for the ruling class. As she approached, Lord Vorthen noticed the careful way she moved, as if each step caused her pain. When she reached out to examine his shoulder, he caught sight of her wrist where her sleeve had pulled back slightly. Dark purple marks encircled her delicate skin like a twisted bracelet. "Celeste," he said softly, his voice filled with concern. "What happened to your wrist?" She quickly pulled her sleeve down, her face flushing with embarrassment. "It's nothing, my lord. Just a minor accident while preparing medicines. Some of the crystal containers can be sharp." But Lord Vorthen's empathic abilities told him a different story. The emotions radiating from her spoke of fear, shame, and a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that no accident could cause. His crystalline features hardened as understanding began to dawn. "Celeste," he said, his voice taking on the commanding tone he used in the council chambers, "look at me."
Act!
Reluctantly, she raised her eyes to meet his. The luminescent face paint couldn't quite hide the shadow of a bruise along her jawline, and her usually bright eyes were dull with unshed tears. "Who did this to you?" he asked, his voice deadly quiet. She shook her head quickly. "Please, my lord, I don't want to cause trouble. I just need to keep working. My position here is all I have." Lord Vorthen rose from the table, his impressive height making him tower over her. The crystal walls began to pulse with a deeper blue light, responding to his rising anger. "Someone has been hurting you. This is not a request for information, Celeste. This is your lord demanding the truth." Tears began to flow down her cheeks as the weight of months of hidden pain finally broke through her carefully constructed barriers. "It's Garrett, my husband. Doesn't approve of me working here. He says I'm betraying my own kind by serving aliens. When I try to leave for work, he becomes angry." The temperature in the room dropped several degrees as Lord Vorthen's fury manifested in the crystal around them. Ice began to form on the walls, creating intricate patterns that reflected his emotional state. "How long has this been happening?" He was different on Earth before the evacuation. But here, surrounded by your people, He feels small and powerless. He takes that feeling out on me. Lord Vorthen's hands clenched into fists at his sides. His people had offered sanctuary too. The human refugees when their homeworld became uninhabitable, providing them with new homes and opportunities. To learn that one of them was using that generosity as an excuse for violence filled him with rage. "You will not return to him," he declared, his voice carrying the absolute authority of one accustomed to being obeyed. "I will arrange for you to have quarters in the palace. You will be safe here." Celeste shook her head frantically. "I can't, my lord. You don't understand. Garrett has connections with the Human Settlement Council. If I leave him, he'll make sure I lose my position. He'll spread rumors about inappropriate relationships between humans and aliens. The council already looks for reasons to question the wisdom of integration, and the council will answer to me." Lord Vorthen said, his eyes blazing with inner fire. "I care nothing for their small-minded prejudices. You are under my protection now, but the political implications," Celeste protested, even as hope began to bloom in her chest. "If word spreads that you're harboring a human woman, it could damage relationships between our species." Lord Vorthen stepped closer, his presence both intimidating and comforting. "Let me worry about politics. Your safety is more important than any treaty or council vote." He paused, studying her face with those ancient, knowing eyes. "Tell me, Celeste, in all your months of healing others, when did you last tend to your own wounds?" The question broke something loose inside her, and she began to sob openly. "I don't know how," she admitted. "I've been running from pain for so long, I've forgotten what it feels like to be whole." Without hesitation, Lord Vorthen drew her into his arms, his crystalline skin warm against her cheek. The walls around them began to glow with a soft golden light, the crystal responding to his protective instincts. "Then let me help you remember," he murmured against her hair. For the first time in months, Celeste felt truly safe. The telepathic connection that Lord Vorthen's people possessed allowed him to project feelings of peace and security directly into her mind, soothing the constant anxiety that had become her companion. In his arms, she could almost believe that there was hope for a future without fear. But even as she allowed herself this moment of comfort, she knew that Garrett would not simply let her go. Her husband's pride and possessiveness would drive him to extremes, and she feared what he might do when he discovered her absence from their quarters. As if reading her thoughts, Lord Vorthen pulled back to look into her eyes. "He will not hurt you again," he promised, his voice carrying the weight of a sacred vow. "I give you my word as lord of this realm." The crystal walls pulsed with renewed warmth, sealing his promise into the very foundation of the palace. Oh! Whatever came next, Celeste knew that she would not face it alone. For the first time since arriving on Luminos, she dared to hope that her nightmare might finally be coming to an end. Outside the healing chamber, the twin sons of Luminos continued their eternal dance across the sky, casting ever-changing patterns of light through the crystal city. But inside, two hearts from different worlds had found each other in the darkness, and the first seeds of something beautiful began to take root. The peaceful atmosphere of the healing chamber was shattered by the sound of heavy footsteps echoing through the crystal corridors. Celeste's body went rigid in Lord Vorthen's arms as she recognized the angry cadence of her husband's approach. The gentle golden glow of the walls immediately shifted to a warning amber as the palace's living crystal responded to her terror. "He's coming," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I was supposed to be home hours ago. He'll be furious." Lord Vorthen's grip tightened protectively around her as his telepathic senses picked up the approaching storm of rage and alcohol that surrounded Garrett like a toxic cloud. The crystalline lord's eyes hardened to the color of winter ice as he gently but firmly moved Celeste behind him. "Stay behind me," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3 centuries of leadership. "You are under my protection now." Chamber doors burst open with a violence that sent crystal shards skittering across the floor. Garrett stumbled in, his face flushed with drink and fury. His human features were twisted with the kind of hatred that had been festering in the darker corners of the refugee settlements since their arrival on Luminos. "There you are," he snarled, his bloodshot eyes fixing on Celeste with predatory intensity. Do you have any idea what time it is? The whole settlement is talking about how my wife spends more time with aliens than with her own husband. Celeste shrank back against the crystal wall, her healer's instinct screaming at her to make herself small and invisible. But Lord Vorthon stepped forward, his imposing figure blocking Garrett's path to his wife.
Out!
Invitation, Lord Vorthon said, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones that made the crystal walls vibrate with barely contained power. I suggest you leave immediately. Garrett's laugh was ugly and bitter. Your palace? You mean the fancy prison you've built for us refugees? Don't think I don't know what this is about, alien? You want my wife for yourself, don't you? You can't find pleasure with your own kind, so you steal from humans. The temperature in the room began to drop as Lord Vorthon's anger manifested in the living crystal around them. Frost began to form on the walls, creating intricate patterns that reflected his emotional state. Your wife is here because she chooses to be. She is a gifted healer who has saved countless lives, both human and luminen. She deserves respect, not the violence you have shown her. Violence. Garrett's voice rose to a shout. One discipline. My wife, when she forgets her place, that's my right as her husband. You aliens might not understand human customs, but a man is responsible for keeping his woman in line. Those are not customs, Lord Vorthon replied, his voice deadly quiet. Those are the actions of a coward who hurts those smaller than himself, because he cannot face his own inadequacies. Celeste watched in amazement as Lord Vorthon defended her with a fierce protectiveness she had never experienced before. The contrast between the two men was stark. Where Garrett reeked of alcohol and desperation, Lord Vorthon radiated strength and controlled power. His crystalline skin caught the light of the chamber, making him appear almost godlike in his fury.
You.
Don't get to judge me, lizard, Garrett spat, using the derogatory term that some humans had adopted for the Luminen people. Celeste belongs to me. She's my wife, and she's coming home right now. He lunged forward, reaching for Celeste's arm with the same violent grip that had left so many bruises. But Lord Vorthon moved with inhuman speed, his hand catching Garrett's wrist in a grip that could crush stone. Human man cried out in pain as the alien lord's superior strength became evident. You will not touch her again, Lord Vorthon said, his voice carrying a finality that made the crystal walls ring like bells. Ever Garrett struggled against the iron grip, his face turning red with pain and humiliation. Let go of me. This is between me and my wife. You have no right to interfere in human affairs. She ceased to be just a human affair the moment she became part of my household, Lord Vorthon replied, applying just enough pressure to make Garrett gasp. And she stopped being your wife the moment you raised your hand to her in violence. Behind Lord Vorthon, Celeste found her voice. The sight of her protector defending her so fiercely had awakened something she thought Garrett had beaten out of her long ago. Her courage. I'm not going back with you, Garrett, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. I'm done hiding the bruises. I'm done making excuses for your anger. I'm done being afraid. Garrett's eyes widened with shock and rage. You can't leave me. I'm your husband. Without me, you're nothing. Just another refugee alien sympathizer with nowhere to go. She has a place here, Lord Vorthon said, finally releasing Garrett's wrist. The human stumbled backward, cradling his injured arm. Celeste is valued here for her skills, her compassion, and her courage, qualities you clearly cannot recognize. The alien lord's telepathic abilities allowed him to sense the deeper currents of Garrett's emotions. Beneath the anger and alcohol, he felt the man's crushing sense of inadequacy. Garrett had lost everything when Earth became uninhabitable. His job, his status, his sense of purpose. All that remained was his marriage. He clung to it with the desperate violence of a drowning man. But understanding did not breed sympathy. Not when that desperation had been taken out on someone as gentle and giving as Celeste. You think you can just steal her from me? Garrett's voice cracked with a mixture of rage and despair. I won't let you. I'll tell the settlement council. About this. About how you aliens are corrupting our women, turning them against their own kind. Tell them, Lord Vorthon said with calm confidence. Tell them that you beat your wife until she fled to me for protection. Tell them that you broke, into my palace in a drunken rage to reclaim property you consider her to be? See how sympathetic they are to your cause." Celeste stepped out from behind Lord Vorthen, her fear replaced by a determination that made her seem to glow with inner light. "I'll tell them myself, Garrett. I'll tell them about every bruise, every threat, every night I stayed awake wondering. If you would finally go too far." Admission hit Garrett like a physical blow. He staggered backward, his face cycling through emotions too quickly to track. "You wouldn't," he whispered. "You wouldn't humiliate me like that." "I would," she replied with quiet strength, "because other women in the settlement are going through the same thing. They need to know they don't have to suffer in silence, Lord." Vorthon felt a surge of admiration for the small human woman who had found the courage to speak her truth. His telepathic senses picked up the change in her emotional state. The fear was still there, but it was being overwhelmed by something far more powerful: hope. "The guards will escort you from the palace," Lord Vorthen announced, gesturing to the Luminan warriors who had appeared silently in the doorway. Their crystalline armor gleamed with inner light, and their weapons hummed with barely contained energy. "If you return uninvited, you will be arrested and tried under Luminan law." Garrett looked at the guards, then at his wife standing proudly beside her alien protector, and finally at Lord Vorthen himself. The fight went out of him all at once, leaving him looking smaller and more pathetic than ever. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "She's still my wife under human law." "Human law has no power in my palace," Lord Vorthon replied. "And if you persist in harassing her, I will petition the Interspecies Council to have your residency on Luminos revoked. I'm sure Earth's toxic. Atmosphere would welcome you back." The threat was not idle. Lord Vorthen's influence extended far beyond his own crystal city, and everyone in the chamber knew it. Garrett's shoulders sagged as he realized the full extent of his powerlessness. As the guards led him away, Garrett turned back one last time. "You think you've won?" he said to Celeste. "But you'll see. Dalians can't love like humans can. He'll get bored with his exotic pet and throw you away. Then you'll come crawling back, and I might not be there to take you, Lord." Vorthen's eyes blazed with fury at the insult, but Celeste placed a gentle hand on his arm. "He's wrong," she said quietly, her words meant for both men. "Love isn't about possession or control. It's about wanting someone to be free, to become their best self." She looked up at Lord Vorthen with eyes that held a new light. "And I've never felt more free than I do right now." The chamber fell silent, except for the gentle humming of the crystal walls as they pulsed with warm golden light. Lord Vorthen looked down at the brave woman beside him and felt something shift in his ancient heart. What had begun as protectiveness was becoming something far deeper and more profound, as Garrett's footsteps faded into the distance. Celeste and Lord Vorthen stood together in the healing chamber, both understanding that they had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. The confrontation was over. Their story was just beginning. 3 months had passed since Garrett's violent confrontation in the healing chamber. The Crystal Palace had transformed into a sanctuary of peace for Celeste. The living walls had grown to accommodate her presence, creating a beautiful suite of rooms that perfectly balanced human comfort with luminant elegance. But more than the physical space, it was the emotional healing that had truly transformed. Her Lord Vorthen had kept his promise. Garrett had been formally banished from the palace grounds, and the Interspecies Council had issued a restraining order that kept him confined to the outer settlements. The Human Settlement Council, faced with overwhelming evidence of domestic violence, had been forced to take action. Several other women had come forward with their own stories of abuse, and new laws were being drafted to protect all refugees, regardless of species. This morning, Celeste stood in her private garden, a miracle of crystal and living plants that Lord Vorthen had grown specially for her. The Luminan flowers pulsed with gentle bioluminescence, while Earth's plants that had been carefully transported and adapted thrived in the alien soil. It was a perfect metaphor for what she had become, a bridge between two worlds. "You look peaceful." Lord Vorthen's voice carried the warm harmonics that had become as familiar to her as her own heartbeat. She turned to find him standing in the garden's entrance, his crystalline form catching the morning light in countless rainbow patterns. I am, she replied, and meant it completely. For the first time in years, I wake up without fear. I sleep through the night without nightmares. I can't remember the last time I felt this whole. He approached slowly, his ancient eyes studying her face with the intensity that had become so familiar. Over the past months, their relationship had deepened far beyond protector and protected. They had become friends, confidants, and eventually, something much more profound. The council meeting went well, he said, settling beside her on the crystal bench that had grown from the garden floor at his approach. The new protection laws have been ratified. No being on Luminos will suffer in silence the way you did. Celeste felt a surge of pride and satisfaction. She had testified before the Interspecies Council, her words helping to shape legislation that would protect countless others. From victim to advocate had been a journey she never could have imagined. I received news about Garrett, Lord Vorthen continued, his voice careful and measured. He's been offered resettlement on New Geneva, a human colony world. The council believes a fresh start might help him address his issues. And if he refuses, Celeste asked, though she found she cared less about Garrett's fate than she might have expected, then he remains in the outer settlements under supervision. Either way, he can never hurt you again. The certainty in his voice made her heart flutter. Over the months, she had come to understand that Lord Vorthen's protection came not just from duty, but from something far deeper. The way he looked at her, the gentle way he spoke her name, the careful attention he paid to her comfort and happiness all pointed to feelings that transcended simple guardianship. Vorthan, she said softly, using the more intimate version of his name that he had given her permission to use. I need to tell you something. He turned to face her fully, his crystalline features shifting to that expression of complete attention. That made her feel like the most important person in the universe. I'm listening. When I first came to work in your palace, I was broken. I had forgotten what it felt like to be valued for who I am rather than what I could provide. You gave me back my sense of self-worth. She reached out to touch his hand, marveling at how his skin felt warm despite its crystalline appearance. But somewhere along the way, you gave me something else. Something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? He asked, though his telepathic abilities were already picking up the emotional currents flowing between them. Hope, she said simply. Hope for a future where I could be truly happy. Hope that someone could see past my scars to the person underneath. Hope that love could be gentle instead of violent. Lord Vorthen's eyes began to glow with the soft light that indicated deep emotion in his species. Celeste, I need you to know that my feelings for you go far beyond protection or duty. You have become precious to me in ways I never expected. She felt her heart racing as he continued, in 3 centuries of life. I have never encountered someone who combines such strength with such gentleness. You heal not just bodies, but souls. You've certainly healed mine. I love you, she said, the words coming out in a rush of honesty that surprised them both. I know we're different species. I know there will be challenges, but I love you with everything I am. The garden around them began to pulse with warm golden light as Lord Vorthen's joy manifested in the living crystal. He stood, drawing her up with him, and cupped her face in his hands with infinite tenderness. And I love you, he replied, his voice carrying harmonics that made the very air around them sing.
Ow.
Not despite our differences, but because of them. You have shown me that love knows no boundaries of species or world. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative. A meeting of 2 souls who had found each other across the vast distances of space and difference. The garden exploded into brilliant light around them, the crystal flowers blooming in response to their combined emotions. When they finally parted, both were glowing with happiness. There will be those who disapprove, Lord Vorthen said, though. His voice held no doubt. Both among my people and yours. Let them, Celeste replied with the confidence she had learned from him. We've both spent too much time living for other people's approval. I want to live for us. 6 months later, the Crystal Palace hosted the first interspecies bonding ceremony in Lumino's history. Representatives from dozens of worlds attended, witnessing the union of the Luminen Lord and the human healer who had found love in the aftermath of violence. Celeste wore a gown woven from crystal fibers that caught the light of 100 candles. The Lord Vorthan was resplendent in the ceremonial robes of his people. As they exchanged vows in both human and Luminan traditions, the palace walls pulsed with rainbow light, celebrating the joining of two hearts. Do you, Celeste of Earth, take Vorthon of the Crystal Spires to be your bonded partner, to love and cherish across all worlds and times? The officiant asked. I do, she replied, her voice carrying clearly through the crystal chamber. I promise to love you with the same courage you taught me to find in myself. Do you, Lord Vorthon of Luminos, take Celeste of Earth to be your bonded partner, to protect and cherish across all worlds and times? I do, he replied, his voice making the crystal walls sing with joy. I promise to love you with the same gentleness you brought to my warrior's heart. As they kissed to seal their union, the palace erupted in celebration. The living crystal itself seemed to dance with happiness, creating patterns of light that would be remembered for generations. In the audience, other interspecies couples watched with hope in their eyes. Celeste and Lord Vorthon had proven that love could transcend any barrier, heal any wound, and create bridges between the most different of worlds. Later, as they danced their first dance as a bonded pair, Lord Vorthon whispered in her ear, Do you ever regret the path that brought you to me? Celeste looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears of joy. Never, she said firmly. Every scar, every moment of fear, every tear I shed led me to you. I would walk through fire to find this happiness. Then we are truly matched, he replied, spinning her around as the crystal floor beneath them bloomed with flowers of light. For I would move planets to keep you safe and happy. As the celebration continued around them, Celeste reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a broken woman hiding her bruises to a confident healer who had found love beyond her wildest dreams. She had become living proof that humans could adapt, survive, and thrive, no matter what the universe threw at them. The human spirit, she realized, was not just about enduring hardship. It was about finding ways to grow and love and hope, even in the darkest of circumstances. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, it was about finding someone who would love all the broken pieces of you and help you put them back together into something even more beautiful than before. In the years that followed, Celeste and Lord Vorthon became symbols of hope for refugees across the galaxy. Their love story was told on 1,000 worlds, inspiring others to believe that no matter how far from home you might be, no matter how different you might seem, love could always find a way. And in the Crystal Palace of Luminos, where the walls themselves pulsed with the rhythm of two hearts beating as one, their legacy lived on in the countless lives they had touched and the bridges they had built between worlds that once seemed impossibly far apart. The healer had finally learned to heal herself, and in doing so, had helped heal the galaxy.